Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Hey friends, I am Neethi the pharmacist, here with my co-hosts Janae Williams and Valerie Cruz, and we are on full. Welcome to Our View.
Hi, everyone.
Hey everybody, how are you?
Hey friends, with us today, it's exciting. We have Anita Khalek. She's the owner of Fresh Levant, which a food blogger. She's a food blogger and a hotel industry veteran. And she had been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition about 8 years ago. With the guidance of her doctor, she switched her food repertoire to a gluten-free and dairy-free diet, and the results were so convincing that even her entire family followed suit. So the bistro of Fresh Levant, the bistro is proudly committed to offering organic foods, teaming up with local farmers and regional suppliers who share the vision for organic practices and earth-friendly principles. So we welcome you, Anita. We're so glad to have you today.
Awesome.
Yay!
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you guys.
So we're going to dive on in, and one of the things that's amazing, is that it's a GMO-free and a gluten-free restaurant. And
Yes.
So how has food impacted your life?
Wow, that's a big question. How far back do you want me to go?
All the way.
Okay, so I grew up, I'm Lebanese. I grew up around the Mediterranean. I spent practically every summer growing up going to visit my family back home, spending a lot of time with my grandparents, and they were farmers. They grew everything they ate, minus the grains. And I remember vivid times where I would go with my grandmother in the mornings, early mornings, picking tomatoes and cucumbers, the grapes off of the vines, figs, all kinds of fruits,
Lovely.
herbs. Everything grew. Everything was grown around the house. Everything they harvested during the summer, they cooked, and what was left, the extras, were sun dried and were jammed or pickled. So this was their pantry for the wintertime. So this is my relationship with food growing up. Now fast forward to the time where we moved to the United States. That was April of 1990. Everything was new. The entire environment here is very different than back home or back in the Mediterranean in general. And so we assimilated to this type of environment. We still are, we grew up eating home cooked meals, everything from scratch. My mother is a great cook, and we were accustomed to eating this way. And when we were here, when we moved here, we did the same thing. We kept eating home cooked meals until we all spread out and went to college. And then we ended up with cafeteria type foods, as you know, in the college dining halls, and the options are very limited for anything that's remotely close to a scratch made meal.
It's a food desert, Anita. Let's just say it out loud.
It is, yes, it is a food desert. And so honestly, what I did at school was they give you this card that's like for your meals to pay with at the dining halls, and so I didn't eat there. I actually bought a condo near the school, and I just moved to it and cooked my own food and tried to eat as much as possible like back home. And I would call my mother for recipes and just try to emulate what I was accustomed to eating. But
Yeah.
I mean, you can't help it as a college kid. We're going out, we're studying really late. There's no time to cook, so I ended up eating out a lot of times, and I started not feeling great after a few years of doing that. And anytime I came back home, I would just complain from stomach aches. But I didn't understand what was going on. And early on, I went to doctors to see what is the problem, and I didn't get an answer. The initial answer was I have IBS, which they didn't really explain much to me. So I went on and tried to forget about it. I moved out to LA, and in LA, I found it to be a lot better to find really healthy, good food. A lot of organic ingredients are available at your fingertips over there. So I found co-ops and I found farmers markets that are all organic. And again, I started doing the thing that I'm accustomed to doing, which is cooking for myself. And my brother was my roommate at the time, so we had a great time together. It was really fun, and my health got better all of a sudden because I stopped eating
Poison. You stopped
poison.
eating poison.
I stopped eating the conventional stuff, which at college that's all you get. You don't have anything else.
Right. They're poisoning the youth, and it's just really despicable. And I think that, we need to just call it like it is, Anita, because nobody else is. And that was why, one of the reasons we want you on the show, because, the big deal about what's happening right now, the pretense of the show is that, currently, if somebody had been sitting on the moon and looking at the earth for the past 50 years or so, 100 years, they would have watched it go from this vibrant blue and green place to this brown. Because
I believe it.
Yeah, the earth is just browning right now. And it's happening because they've centralized and industrialized life. And we're not allowed to have a conversation about these things. And so, that's the reason why we're doing the show, because we want to have very open, intentional conversations. And, what you're describing is, unfortunately, it's just not unique. It's been happening.
No,
it's happening to all of us.
I'm sure it's not unique because, some of the information, I'll give you some of my experience as I moved here and started seeing differences here. Yeah. So one of the main differences was I was watching TV one time and the commercial was talking about real cheese, something real cheese. And I looked around the family, I'm like, is there anything else?
Right.
Cheese. Should there be anything else but real cheese? Right. What is it if it's not real cheese?
Yeah, that's a good point. They have to classify it as real for a reason, don't they?
Right, but I think as a society here, we've been synthesized to that idea of, some things are not real, some things are real, but truly we have done such a disservice to society by, our youth. I'll give you an example, and I'm in the restaurant business now, and a lot of my employees are youth. And they know nothing about the source of the food or what the food looks like. Some of them haven't even seen an eggplant before or don't know what a type of lettuce is. Or it's really pathetic to have college students who don't know anything about the food that they're eating. But then they're constantly, taking shots of their food plates and posting it on social media. And I'm sure adults are doing the same thing too. I think it's such a disservice to our society to not know where your food is coming from, how it's grown, what is it that you're eating. Everything.
You're just asking a lot of people, Anita. I don't really know. Like, who has time for this? I don't know. Why should we know where anything comes from? Why should we even question what it is? Wasn't it approved by the USDA? Or somebody, someone else already told us that it was okay, it's safe, right? Why should we waste our time doing that when we really have to get busy? I don't know what we have to get busy doing exactly. So that's my problem with the whole thing is that, today society the priorities, are just so messed up. Right now, what else can I say? There's no priority about what you put in your mouth. Think about this, really. I want people to really wonder, if we were in the caveman time and the dinosaurs are chasing us, are you going to just grab anything and put it in your mouth? People,
oh, yeah.
No one out in the wild, when you're in this is what's interesting to me, is that if you take a group of people into the woods to go camping, they have a guide there to tell you where the safe berries are, the poisonous berries are. And
Right,
they'll
right.
listen to this guide or whatever. But if we say, you know, I mean, I think it's funny that they won't eat the poisonous berries, which are very conveniently located. And the ones that are really good for you to have are hanging over, you know, the creek water, whatever, and you can like barely get. You're gonna kill yourself trying to get to these berries, and they'll do that because they don't want to die by eating the poisonous berries. However, when they're in town, then they won't make the effort to, you know, seek out like a farm or like any kind of program or whatever to know where their food is coming from, because that's like super inconvenient, you know. So they only need to be concerned about it if they're camping in the woods. But when they're in town, you know, you can give them Skittles or whatever. And it doesn't matter. And what's in it anyway? I don't know. You know, they can't even take the time to know, because if it's somewhere in a centralized distribution point, it's safe because, you know,
Right.
it's approved by somebody.
So accessible, and it's
just right there
everywhere. And the messages say that, you know, if it's here, it's fine, but it's not.
And convenience came at the cost of all of this.
Yes.
It's just taking the convenience and placing it above all else, that you don't need to know all of these things. It's right there for you. It's packaged, it's washed, it's clean, it's done. And you're just going to consume it because you think that that's exactly what it says on the package. I mean, when Kellogg's says healthy cereal and they can claim that it's better for your diabetes, but then a natural brand cannot say that on their box, it shows you where the system is going and what they're supporting.
Mm-hmm.
They're supporting big industry. They're not supporting the small farmers. They're not supporting the small artisanal places that are doing things the right way.
That's right.
I mean,
I'm curious, before we even get down that route, back to your story.
Mm-hmm.
When you went to LA, what happened exactly?
I mean, why were you in LA? Is that?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you
I
found
went to
out
LA
you
for
were
a
feeling
job.
better, right? You were feeling
Yeah.
better because you had accessibility to food again. And then
Right.
how did you grow from there?
I just ate the foods that I found in the markets every day that are very accessible. There was a co-op where I used to shop for all my produce, and it was a local co-op, and they had everything that was locally grown, organic. All the farmers were different all the time, so the produce changed dramatically all the time. They had a fresh juice bar, so everything was pretty easy to get to. And so I would just stock up for the week and then do it again on Saturday morning early. So
I mean,
I
that
got
sounds like
back
you were
home.
really being inconvenienced. And I also think that you were so inconvenienced in college. I mean, you know, everyone says that they can't do it. I did what you did in college, by the way. Okay.
Yeah,
I wasn't like as fortunate to have my own apartment, but I made friends with the people who had apartments. And and they didn't like to cook or know how to cook, and I did. So our arrangement was that I could go there and cook and everybody could eat. And we found a third party to buy the food, which was even more fun. So
Great.
I was the laborer. They provided the space. Somebody else paid for the food. We all had a party together. I mean, we had meals together on a pretty regular basis. And I think
great,
that's I think that's the only reason we didn't really just completely fall apart. And we did use our card, like you said, when we had classes that were tight or whatever. But I think that we managed to get almost one meal a day.
Yeah.
At the end of my last couple of years, at the end of each year, I would have about $900 left on that card because I didn't use much of it. And I ended up just going to the coffee bake shop on campus, buying about 10 or 15 whole cakes and bringing them to the dorms for late night snacks when there were finals going on.
Oh, wow.
And I would just give them away because I don't eat a lot of sweets. So I just gave them away basically because the kids, I mean, everybody loved it, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
But,
and you can't even get that money back. And you can't.
Right.
No, I mean, you can't get the money back. And I thought, let's do something with it that's worthwhile for somebody else at least.
That's nice.
See, it's convenience for a lot of people, but they don't realize that. I don't, I think it's just the way that they've always eaten, like, so the students, the kids that are coming to work for you, and then you're noticing they don't even know what an eggplant is, it's like that that might not have been the way that they were raised. And so it's not,
Exactly.
they're just choosing it because they don't know. And so it sounds like there's quite a bit of education that's going on at Fresh
There,
Levant as well.
there is. I mean, in, and it's sad to say, but in a couple of years, we've gone through about 24 employees just because of the simple fact that they weed themselves out. If they're not interested in learning about this food and learning about what truly matters, then they just kind of weed themselves out. And right now, we have a good, solid team. They're not great, they're not perfect, but it's a constant education. And this is what's great about your program too, is that you have to start educating people at whatever level you can, because anybody that's listening is, even if they grab tidbits of things here and there, over time it builds. You're planting a seed, and that seed grows no matter where you go with it.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a good point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got a text message, and I get them every week. The text message when I would work from home some Fridays would be from my child, always trying to get out of school around lunchtime. And what does she say? Can we go to Fresh Levant? And so I'll tell you, just with what you're doing, and the she's aware. She's learned from this show. She's learned from experience. With the what I bring into the house and everything. And so she knows how good your food is, and she wants to work for you one day.
Oh,
She
that's
told
great.
me that.
That's great. Yeah. I think the new generation, the kids today are going to be different, because they're the ones that are experiencing the blunt and the consequence of
Yes.
so many generations of bad food. They're the ones that are born with the allergies.
Right.
There's a whole generation today that is born with all of
Toxic.
these sensitivities and
Yeah.
allergies and issues. And truly, I think it's a divine intervention, because it's the universe telling you, look, you're not paying attention in so many different ways,
Yeah.
but this way you will pay attention, because every household is affected.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
you only pay attention when it's in your house.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
I mean,
if
interestingly,
you're-
a lot of people don't even know what's in their house, though, Anita. I mean, that's what we're saying. There's so many people every day that are taking an allergy pill, taking, an Advil or whatever, and they just think that's fine. They think it's the thing to do. I mean, it's on television that the mailman has the, Aleve that helps him go all day versus taking the ibuprofen that he has to take 4 of or whatever. And, so they think that this is just okay, normal, whatever, and sadly, this next generation, and actually a couple generations even before them that, maybe already working for you, maybe a little bit older than them, even surprisingly, they don't remember a time, like we do. When you were a kid, you don't have a headache.
Right.
I mean, I don't remember any
Never.
kid no kid
Never.
ever had a headache.
Never.
So for children today to have migraines, for them to say they can't lay on the floor. I mean, think about all the times we slept on the floor everywhere that we were drugged and traveled and did whatever. And nobody had a sleeping bag or anything special cot for us or anything. Like, you just put a bunch of kids on the floor with a sheet and they were fine. Like, that was what we were doing when we were traveling with family and stuff. It wasn't like nobody had air mattresses even, when we were traveling.
Right.
And it wasn't a thing. Like,
Right.
nobody cared. I mean, maybe they put a sheet down so you weren't sleeping literally on the carpet or whatever. But, it wasn't like they had to come up with some fancy thing.
Yeah.
And we were fine. We weren't broken. We definitely
No.
were not feeling abused.
Yeah.
If anything, we felt like, this is so cool. We get to sleep on the
It's
floor
fun.
and camp.
It's
gonna,
fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We don't have to be in the
Yeah.
bed. We get to sleep
Yeah.
with 10 people.
You just have to ask yourself the question, like, it's curious, like you said. I remember picking my child up from daycare, and we had a nebulizer, and what I realized when I looked around, and it was like every child had a nebulizer there was nebulizers with children's names on them, and I thought, something's not right here. Why does everyone need this? Does everybody have asthma? Like, what's the problem?
You know what really got my attention, though, Anita, is when they launched the show Survivor, okay? When they launched the show, I was like going, why do we need a show where, you know, basically you're on a beautiful island with gorgeous water and nobody knows how to survive. And it was hilarious, right? Like
Yeah.
you could go, you know, get a banana. I mean, catch some fish, cook it. I mean,
Yeah.
the biggest panic attack that those people are having is how are they going to eat? And I'm like, you know, or if you're thinking about it, am I going to be on the show? How can I go there and be on the show if I can't take my allergy medicine with me? Because I can only, you know, they tell you the restrictions, you can't take all this stuff on the show. And I was thinking about it and I was like going, man, I know a lot of people that can't go be on the show because they could not go without their allergy meds or without
Pain
their
relievers.
migraine meds or without something, whatever. And that really tells you where we're at, you know, as a society. Like, it's insane. But I don't want to get too far off track, okay? So how did you decide to do this and open Fresh Levant? Like, for those of you who are watching, Anita's my neighbor, so I've known her for a long time. But it's really interesting and very cool. Your husband comes over one day, and he says to me, we're going to open this restaurant that's, like, GMO free. And I go, really? Where are you going to get the meat? Because there is no GMO free meat. And we had this whole big conversation about it.
Yeah.
And you know, he went home and it was really interesting. And obviously you guys thought about this, you know. And anybody who knows me knows, like, we won't eat anywhere unless I've vetted everything out.
Yeah.
Like, I've vetted out the sources of it. And, you know, I know that when you're running a restaurant right now, today, that there are compromises that have to be made, not just because of cost, but because the health department is coming over to inspect you. And no matter how clean you want it to be, there's like a moment where you can't go beyond that level. So can you please speak on all these challenges first of all, why did you decide to do this? I think it's so brave of you to have taken that on.
Yes.
Thank you. Well, as I was joking earlier, it was a lapse in judgment. You know, sometimes I'm the kind of person that likes a challenge. And when I was diagnosed, I literally was down to about 15 ingredients. That's all I could have. And I lived that way for about 3.5 years. I got so well, and I started understanding that, you know, a grain is not a grain, is not a grain. That, yes, I'm eating from scratch foods and organic and everything, but I was eating wheat, for example, and yes, it said organic wheat, but then it was grown here in this country, and in this country they desiccate wheat and they do all sorts of things with it. And that's one of the reasons why so many people are coming up with sensitivities and allergies.
You mean poison?
But it's not,
poisoned? They were poisoned?
Poisoned grains, poisoned food. And as much as you want to try and stay clean, it's really difficult to. And over time, I guess I'm more sensitive than other people, but I developed this huge problems. I mean, the list went on and on, from head to toe, from migraines to muscle pains to inflammation, skin issues. I would have cuts in my fingers as if you cut it with a knife. It would just split open randomly, and it would not
I know
heal.
about that too.
Yes, and it was very painful. You know, from symptoms like you have the flu all the time, ear problems, vision problems, muscle aches, everything happened all at once. So when I drastically felt different, and I felt so well, I felt like I went back to my teenage years. That's how I felt after following instructions from my doctor. But as I felt better, the first few months, I took my kids there too. And then my husband followed. And I decided to just clean our entire house from everything relating to grains to everything. And I was spending about 99% of my time in the kitchen, so including making crackers for my kids for their snack time.
Yes, I know the feeling.
Yeah, yeah, I know you were there. So it takes a lot of time to do that. It takes a lot of dedication, but I also know just from going back to my upbringing, the food should be your cure. It shouldn't be the cause of your ailment.
Right.
I didn't want it. I didn't want my kids to grow up and have the same issues that I do because I knew that they were actually on the verge of exhibiting problems even as young as they were 2 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter, when she was born and had a lot of issues with sleeping. She just would not sleep at all for the first 18 months.
A lot
And
of kids. Yep.
Yes, and ear infections were a major issue. She had 13 ear infections back to back.
It's an inflammation and drainage issue in the ears that people don't know. I mean, one of the things, if anybody's suffering with that right now at home, is, you can just elevate your mattress. And, all the kids in our house, the beds are all elevated, and you can do it by putting like a foam wedge under the head of the mattress, and not like a bunch of pillows that you're going to roll off of. But, if you have we elevated the children's crib even, when we learned about that. And
well, what had happened is I had gone to the pediatrician every single time and asked, why is this happening? Back home, we've never heard of an ear infection. Right. My son never had an ear infection, and he was born 2 years before her. But after I took her to my doctor, he told me she was sensitive to dairy and a few other things. So I stopped all of that. And literally within a couple of days, she sleeps through the night, no problem whatsoever. Mm-hmm. We never had an ear infection since.
Right.
And so a lot of these issues are related sometimes to the drainage and things because of the development at that point, but also I think what triggers it is food issues, the toxicity
You mean poison?
Issues. The poison.
Yes. I mean, honestly, that's what it is. It's poisoned. I mean, the dairy problem is not just a dairy problem, because if you're having like properly vetted, grass-based, raw dairy, then it is possible not to have to experience any of those things. I think it's interesting in this country that there's a law about raw milk. Why isn't there a law about raw celery or raw lettuce or raw beef? You know what it is that if they have any one law like that that's approved, this is what Americans, or people generally speaking, I think don't understand, is that, for example, in this vaccine fight, or if you're looking at, very controversial things like abortion issues or anything like that, they take the most, controversial piece of food or health or medicine, and then they put it in the forefront like this to try to pass a law. But once they have a regulation in place for anything, so like they did this thing with the raw milk, right? So now they have a precedent to go on to be able to make any raw ingredient be illegal if they want. This is where people need to really be careful. And so if you're looking at this from a legal perspective, when, they started this abortion fight thing, who in their right mind is really for abortion? I mean, actually. There's a difference between someone being able to make a choice for themselves medically, which is what I would be fighting for. Okay, I'm going to be fighting for me to control my body and make medical decisions for myself. Has not anything really to do with the abortion part of it. So I'm going to be considered pro abortion when actually that's not the truth. The truth is I am like, you get out of my medical life. And you don't get to make a decision for me. And that is literally all. That's it.
Yeah.
And everybody should be fighting for that. It's not because I think that it's really cool to go get an abortion and that I think everyone should be doing it. It's like so awesome and fun. No, I don't know of really too many mothers who actually feel that way, or too many daughters, or too many people who generally think that that's a great idea. Okay. And then you have like this vaccine fight thing or whatever. So they create these battles. All right. That's, again, if they're not going to win on that side, maybe they'll win on the vaccine side, because maybe they can scare everybody because that's what's interesting, right? Like you have people like me who don't want anybody to take over my medical choice, okay? But I might be the person who thinks that, oh, but I don't want my kid to have a disease, you know? And so either way, if you give them permission to enforce mandatory vaccination or give them the choice to enforce, you know, like mandatory, like outlaw abortion, either way, they have a pretense now legally to make medical decisions for you. So when are people going to wake up to this nonsense and decide that they're not going to let the government decide any of these things, including whether I should have raw milk or raw cheese or raw, and let's get off of dairy. What about, what's next? Raw beef, raw fish, raw, you know,
raw eggs.
Raw eggs. You know, if they tell me that I have to buy cooked eggs, I'm going to punch somebody in the face. So, you know, and then they wonder, like, what's going on? Well, how was it handled? Where did it go? And so we're trying to tell everybody they need to know where things come from. What I like is I can come to you and have a conversation with you at your restaurant or outside the restaurant. I can send you an email, whatever. Hey, Anita, what are you putting in blah, 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 blah? I don't want to know your recipe. I just want to know what's in it. Because can I eat it? Can I come there and eat it? That's all I want to know. I want to know, where did you get it? I have absolutely zero interest in competing against your restaurant. I want to come and eat there. So I just need to know, like, what's in it or whatever. And like literally that's it. I can't do that at a corporate chain.
Right.
You can't do that even at random little restaurants, because a lot of times, and this is something I know because I have people that I know that have restaurants, and also from dealing with suppliers and trying to find the right people that could supply food for the restaurant. It took me about 7 or 8 months of trying to narrow down where my food was going to come from. And that's an obscene amount of time for a restaurant to try and get their food, because easily, you know, U.S. Foods, as soon as they heard there's a restaurant popping up, salesperson was right there with the catalog, with the login, with all kinds of things. And I asked very simple questions. I said, we're only going to have organic foods and non-GMO foods. What do you have? Well, he started listing, you know, we could special order this and we can special order that, including down to bananas. They don't have organic bananas.
Wow.
And they have to special order that. So I said, I don't think this is going to work out, because, you know, special order comes with a special price.
Right.
Since you're not currently stocking this item, you're going to get it just for me. And what if my needs increase or decrease? Because they fluctuate with a restaurant. How are you going to stock or be prepared for my order? And they can't. So I'm going to be either falling behind, not getting what I need, or they're going to have excess amounts that they're going to try to push on me.
Right. And spoilage and everything else.
And spoilage and everything. And this was a major issue. It took me so long to try and vet my suppliers, because the major ones that you see supplying to restaurants all around town in every city in this country are those big ones, you know, the Cisco, the US Foods, all of those. And they have absolutely zero, not a single item that I could use.
Wow.
And so it was very disheartening, because I had already committed. I committed to a lease, I committed to a contractor and an architect and everything. And I did not realize that the food part was going to be the most challenging.
Yeah, because the food is nowhere, and that's what we're talking about.
And I thought, you know, food to me comes as second nature. Recipes come easily. I know how to deal with ingredients. I know what to do with them. Training people was not an issue after a while.
Scaling the recipes probably isn't a problem for you.
It wasn't really a big deal. It was those were the easiest parts of opening the restaurant. The most challenging parts were, number one was getting the right food, and number two was getting the right people to cook the food with the correct mindset.
Yes, the consciousness is hard. I mean, it's hard to find people to just come work, period. But then you need a specialized somebody who is going to understand how hard it was for you to get whatever ingredients you got and not to
Yes.
waste them. And then,
Yes.
you know, and that's, I mean, you're
we do,
trusting them with a lot.
I trusted them with a lot, and now that it took me 2 years to step out of the kitchen and delegate and allow them to do it without me standing on their shoulder.
Mhm.
And I'm still there, and I'm still in and out of the kitchen all the time, making sure that they're doing it right. And I trust them because I have a great team in the back. They're so reliable. They're wonderful. They understand everything. They try their best every time. And if they don't know, they ask. And this is what I've always told everybody. If you don't know, I don't want you to assume. I want you to ask, because we are dealing with a niche group. Our customers are all people with allergies and sensitivities, and they're watching what they're eating, and they need our full-on commitment and understanding that this is what we cater to. This is who we are. We're here for you, and we can serve you. We know what you need, and we have it. And it's very important for everybody that's there to understand that, and it's a constant educational. It's the learning curve. It's almost like it never goes away. There's constantly people who are in the learning curve, people who are on just starting, and people who are almost on their way out. So it's just a cycle that keeps going and on and on and on. But back to the food, this was a major issue, and some of the issues that I've dealt with in the past couple of years where I didn't think it would be an issue were, for example, having fresh eggs from a local farm here. The lady has 25 acres north of Henderson, and was supplying us with amazing eggs. They were so good. And I mean, the yolk was fluorescent yellow almost. It was so beautiful. Her chicken ate at the farm. They were just like out and about picking, whatever chicken eat, worms and
Grass,
banana peel, or whatever they wanted. And this is normal chicken. This is what they eat. They don't eat grains.
Oh, you mean they don't have like a label on them that says, all natural chicken? I mean, you were talking about your
vegetarian.
You were talking about the commercial thing that you saw with the real cheese. I remember being in the grocery store, and one day I walked into the store, and there was a chicken, and it was wrapped in this really pretty green packaging or whatever, and it says all natural chicken. And at that time I was working for Has Publishing Company, and I was, I'm in the media world, and marketing 101, state the obvious, and I'm thinking, man, these people spent all kinds of money to put, all natural chicken. Like, what else would it be? It would just only be all, I mean, of course now I'm like going, OMG, I would never eat any of that out of the store, because all the centralized food, once, I realized like what's happening with the centralized food system, and they're industrializing. I mean, it was literally a no-brainer for me. The minute that I knew it, I was like, oh, I'm never eating that again, and I was out.
Well,
and
what about crazy labels like vegetarian fed chicken?
They're not vegetarians.
They're not vegetarians, or farm raised. I actually
try to hold your chicken back from eating the bugs, or from eating the dead body on the farm. I mean, it's gonna be the cleanup crew on the farm. They're vultures, and so, or whatever.
Or like on a menu where I was actually at a restaurant, and on the menu it said farm raised whatever fish it was. That was a great thing.
Can I say something about the vegetarian chicken? I have to say this. Like, they raise these birds, 20, 40,000 in a house, okay? When one of them drops dead, because they do, like half of them are going to die. So when they die, then did you know that the other birds are going to eat the bird, okay? If you don't believe that, then, I mean, like I had parakeets growing up, and one of the parakeets died, and the other parakeet had half eaten the dead parakeet by the morning before we could know that the parakeet died. And we were like, we were just like mortified by this. Well, that's what's happening in the chicken houses. So when you think you're buying this vegetarian fed thing raised in a house, I mean, half of them ate the other half, basically, or tried to before somebody like came and like stopped them from doing that. Because nature, I mean, I think what's interesting is these marketing people didn't have a meeting with the chickens to say, hey, by the way, you have to be on the strict diet and behave, be good, only eat this crap that we're giving you and not what you're supposed to normally naturally do,
Yeah,
can't.
yeah.
I,
You know, here it reminds me of something. If you look at the animal kingdom, you don't see lions going vegan. You don't see zebras chowing on birds. I mean, zebras as the not zebras. I'm talking giraffe.
yes.
But I mean, every animal sticks to what they're naturally supposed to eat, and they don't divert.
Right.
They don't, because they're so in tune with what they're supposed to eat, and
They're
they
savages,
do it.
Anita. We're brilliant. They're savages. What are you talking about?
I
mean-
know, I know. I think that honestly, we've taken nature and flipped it upside down
Yeah.
and pretend like we're more sophisticated and we know exactly what needs to happen, when in fact it's all it is go back to nature. What are we supposed to eat? We're supposed to eat clean, naturally grown foods that is as natural as can be. No need to flip around the seed and make it pest resistant or make it anything resistant. Just let it be.
How many lions do you see becoming obese? I mean, or the giraffe or whatever. You look at any of these creatures in nature, they don't have a body weight problem. None
They
of
don't
them.
have weight problems, and they don't have the ailments that we're suffering
They don't
from.
have disease, and they don't have a
disease.
CVS on every corner either, or whatever. Sorry, pharmacy.
But you know
But
what?
here-
If you
here's what I'm telling
domesticate
you.
them, they get all of our diseases. We know that
Exactly.
cats
This
and
is my
dogs are
point
just
that
as sick as us.
That's what I'm coming to. I know so many people with cats and dogs, and the dogs are developing cancer, tumors. They're on diabetes medicine. They're on all sorts of things
It's horrible.
like
really-
us. And then you wonder what's wrong with our food.
Yeah.
And also,
It's not the food. We're crazy.
It's
Did
not
you
the-
know that? We're the crazy ones.
crazy. And the other thing is that I also want to mention is I've also been speaking to a lot of adults over time, and you know that you ask them, are you in good health, for example, and they say, yes, I'm great, I'm fine, there's nothing wrong with me. But then you find out they're on cholesterol medicine, high blood pressure, and diabetic medicine, insulin of some kind of insulin thing.
It's
control
normal
it.
though. That's normal.
But
That doesn't
those have been
count.
so normal. They've been normalized to the point where people don't look at that as something wrong, that it's supposed to be that way.
Because
that
they have
you're
medicine.
supposed to have that.
Because they have a
Because you're
medicine for it.
Because the doctors are telling them it's okay, it's part of aging. You're supposed to have that. You're supposed to develop that. But then you have kids who are developing the same thing. So how is that part of aging now? I would like a doctor to try and give me the reason why kids are developing that
Thank you.
right now.
Right now, we have
And-
11-year-olds with
there
kidney
is-
stones.
Yes, I believe it. I believe it.
But that's why I think having you on this show is so important, because you saw the problem. Obviously, you're passionate about the problem. And I know you joke about why you opened the restaurant, but it sounds to me you opened the restaurant as a solution to a problem you were having and seeing in the community and in your family.
That's exactly why. Like I said before, I like a challenge, but I felt like my kids were deprived of a normal life. We couldn't go out to eat. We couldn't enjoy a meal out and be treated to some good wine, a good meal, without having to feel like I'm being poisoned every time I put a bite in my mouth. And I felt like I wanted my kids to have the opportunity to be able to go to a restaurant and order desserts and not have to worry about anything. And I love seeing their faces when they go to the restaurant now, even though we're not dining together as a family, but they come in all the time, they look at the desserts, they pick a dessert, they eat a snack after school, they have lunch sometimes over there with me, and it's just nice to have that option for them. Whereas before, we didn't have anything.
And because of you, we now have something.
Yes.
I mean, this is the only place, it's really literally the only place we can go and not worry and be stressed
And drink
out
the water.
and drink we can drink the water. Yeah. I mean, everything is, we know you put all the thought behind it. And now I hear, you know, I only knew that, but now hearing what you had to go through, I mean, just it was a labor of love for the community because we needed a place. There really isn't any other place like that. I mean, if people are listening in to this and thinking that there are other places like this in Raleigh or around the Triangle, there really isn't.
No, and then try to leave town. Good luck. I mean,
Yes.
it's nowhere.
But we want it to be.
Yes,
We
we want it to
want
be
it
everywhere.
really
To
do.
be where
Yes, and
everyone is
yes.
like you, who takes this
I-
issue and opens a restaurant. That is like amazing to me.
Exactly.
You just
I think it
automatically went in there and solved the problem.
Well, I think it would be amazing if more people would take on this this task because yes, it's challenging for someone who's just basically paving the way. But as more and more of us do this, suppliers are gonna have to be forced
Yes.
to cater
Yes.
to us.
Well,
And-
or why not? You know, what's wrong with the relationships that you've developed? That's the beauty of it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, yes,
Exactly.
it would be convenient for you to be able to franchise it out or something. That would be convenient. I mean, but this corporatocracy is what we're fighting against, Anita. You know,
Exactly.
that's what
No,
we don't.
you know what? I was asked to franchise like 6 months into it.
Wow.
Wow.
And I said, no, I don't believe in franchises. I don't believe that you can uphold the integrity of a product when it's that big, when it's so decentralized and there isn't a person that has a stake in it right there in that place, in that space. Managers and, you know, your employees and everybody, they do great, but they do based on, you know, the typed up manual that you have in front of them, but that heart is not going to be coming through because you as the owner, you as the person with that experience that created this, you cannot convey that to every single place if you're all over the country.
No.
It just it's
Impossible.
It's
Impossible.
But
I mean, you
can,
have to be the
but
example.
You can find other people with that same heart.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
show them
Absolutely.
and guide
Absolutely.
them. And
Yeah,
educate
you
them.
should be
You
the
know-
teacher. I mean, it should just be the hub. I mean, what it needs to be is a teaching space. So,
It does. And actually, you know, that's one of my projects down the list that I have is to be able to open a teaching kitchen where you teach people, you know, as you are teaching through your listeners on what to look for and why are these issues at hand. You know, we also need to continue the conversation and teach people, okay, so I know this is the problem. Now what do I do?
Yes.
You got to have the tools available for them to be able to go out there and fend for themselves. So not everybody is going to have the time, for example, to go vet each and every person they buy from. But let's say they do, and let's say they find a place where they can purchase stuff from. Then what? Then what do I do with all these things that I have? And how do I do it as a cost-effective
right.
way of life? Which I think is, in fact, it's cheaper, I think, to take care of yourself and really learn how to deal with the ingredients and the seasonality of ingredients. It's so much cheaper to deal with that than to just go the conventional way and then eventually in a few years develop issues and deal with doctors and bills and all kinds of things that you have to deal with.
Well, I think that the misconception is that people think that they have insurance. And, you know, that just takes care of everything. Right. And it's such a joke. I mean, you know, and having been in the situation with a child in the hospital with a terminal diagnosis, I can tell you that it is not cheap. We had the best insurance, and they were sure to cash in on all $3 million of her then lifetime maximum, which now they don't have lifetime maximums, but at that time they did. And they cashed in on her $3 million lifetime maximum in the first 6 months. They weren't going to even let it get anywhere. I mean, and I was like, wow, this is a joke. And then the rest of it, out of pocket. They were, I mean, we were, you know, when people think that we weren't like practically bankrupt, I mean, let me just go ahead and wake you up. Because whatever investment you make in gaining health through real food, whatever cost you think it is that you feel is unattainable, no, once you have a diagnosis, and if you're going down that route with your insurance, you will be financially completely wiped out. Your family
Yes.
will all have chipped in if they love you that much, and they'll
Right.
be wiped out. And anybody
Right.
who you touch is going to be wiped out. And we already know this because we see people doing all these fundraisers for so and so who just was diagnosed, and they're doing a big thing to raise money for that person. And that's how they not only are robbing that person, they're robbing their community of that.
True.
When these people, I mean, when it would be better for them to just come and invest in the actual food. A lot of people will tell us that we're crazy to come and frequent your place because it's so expensive. And I'm like, okay, well, we in our minds only have one restaurant. Like, if this is Little House on the Prairie, then that's the diner, and that's it.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
either I cook everything or I go there, and that's
Right.
basically it. And
Yeah.
thank God we come eat there, and it doesn't taste like the person who didn't really know how to cook on Little House on the Prairie, and it's actually amazing, and it's joyful, and our children like
Amazing.
fight to come there every day if they could. But I want to get back to the challenges because I know that you could and would want to go cleaner because you were raised on a farm, okay? And how the Department of Health doesn't allow you to do that in the restaurants here. What message can we send to eaters about, how they can try to fight for policy change, for one thing? And also, what can we do as regenerative consumers to better support, what you're doing so that you can be more seasonal and local, and support more farmers? And or is there a cost issue? Is there a way around that? Can you speak on those points?
Yeah, in terms of the ingredients, I think one of the issues that we dealt with in the beginning, like I said, for example, with the eggs, it was when the health inspector came, he didn't want to have the fresh eggs in there because they weren't pasteurized. They weren't treated, and there was, the packaging wasn't labeled, it's not traceable. And I said, well, I know exactly where they came from. He said, no, they need to come from a plant of some kind. Like they need the
Wow.
person, the where they come from, the supplier has to be a registered supplier with the FDA or with whatever local organization it is. So we were not allowed, and they docked points on that. So, as you go into restaurants.
Wait a minute, that's your health rating?
Yes, they take points away from health ratings for
Because you were serving us local chicken eggs that were better for us.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make that point, okay?
Yes,
Please
yes.
continue, please continue.
I mean, this health rating, it wakes you up because when you see health rating like that in a restaurant, I want you to also keep in mind that they're not necessarily looking at the quality of the ingredients of the food there. They're simply looking at temperature control, if things are stored properly, if things are traceable. So, for example, if you have fish, you need to have a letter from the supplier that states that that fish has come from this place and it has gone through parasite check and things of that nature.
So the human beings that we know that are local, that we can put our eyes on, who are getting their fish from the coast, and they're putting their eyes on the fish and they're cutting it, they're the fishmonger, they know the parasitic issues with it, and they're going to sell it to you based on whether they believe it's safe or not. That's never good enough. That's what I want everybody to know, Anita.
Right.
As a restaurant owner, you can't buy it from like my
I can't.
fishmonger.
No, I can't.
Right. Can you
I
also
have-
tell them that you can't, our fishmonger, when they sell to restaurants, generally are selling it whole so that you can save money, so you can butcher it yourself and create, the cuts that you need, the way that you need it, so that you can absorb the physical labor costs or whatever, so that it's cheaper, so you can actually offer a plate that's affordable to somebody, okay? But you're not allowed to cut fish, are you?
No, I'm not, because so one of the issues as well is to have enough prep space or sink space. So fish needs to have a separate sink and then chicken and meats. So, as you know from frequenting the restaurant, our kitchen is about 15 feet long by about I don't know 6 or 7 feet wide,
It's
and
about
that's it.
20,000 square foot, I think, right?
It's not, and it's a miracle to me every day that we can accomplish what we do in such a small, tiny space. But
It's like
we
a
try.
shipping container, guys.
It's kind
You
of like
know,
a small shipping container, like
yeah,
one of those like storage pods, basically.
right.
This is so this is with the space that we have to deal with, and we do it at the best possible way we can. My dream is to have a lot more space. I would love to offer a lot more fresh ingredients, fresh veggies and things, but in order to store them appropriately, we need to have more space on the line where we're prepping. They need to be refrigerated all time, and it's not necessarily refrigerated in the cooler. They need to be accessible for the preps and for the cooks to be
Mm-hmm.
able to put your plate together right there. Um, so those were the challenges in finding proper suppliers. I couldn't go to my farmer and say, hey, I'm gonna, I need a cow this week, so can you just send me the butchered cow and we're all good, I'll pay you and that's it. No, no, you have to go through the proper chains and
And these are even animals that are butchered at USDA facilities. She's not allowed to take because
right,
even if we're taking the steer to a USDA place that's going to have the USDA seal on it, she can't just do that.
right, yes. So,
It's crazy. I mean, I want everybody to know because, and then if you do take the cow, you only get 16 ribeyes off of it and 16 New York strips off of it, and it's mostly like 300 pounds of ground beef off of it. So in a
right,
week, you need to be able to consume whatever reasonably. I mean, the eaters need to know
hmm,
why that would mean if you were going to be doing that, why the
right,
steaks would have to be like super elite, limited, whatever, and then that there would be way more, sausages and something else
right,
probably,
right,
So as an eater, you need to understand all these things. And so if they're
right,
going to a regular restaurant, like you're no regular restaurant, but if they're going to a regular restaurant, imagine what that mess is.
right,
I can't
right.
even understand.
And then, I mean, as diners, we're used to going to a restaurant and you like your favorite plate and you want to get that every single time. And if you don't have it, then it's kind of like a 1 point off for that restaurant because they don't have the one that I like. But if you are going down the path of getting everything from your local place and you're butchering everything and assuming that it's all allowed, you're dealing with seasonality right there. And consumers
Hmm.
in this country are not used to seasonality of ingredients. They want, you know,
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
they want
They,
strawberries at Christmas and
Right.
yeah.
they want pomegranates in the summertime. I love pomegranates. I think they're great for you too. But putting them on the menu was very challenging because they're not available all the time. I can get them probably 4 times, 5 times in the whole year.
So, are you able to sustain the restaurant if you were to have like a handful of seasonal items or a menu? Because I know you can't just change the menu um, all the time. That's like, I know that that's
Yeah,
kind
that
of like some type of suicide for a restaurant.
I think it works great if it's a small restaurant and I'm the chef in there and I'm constantly in the kitchen and we're not open breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It would have to be a very restricted type of time. It would have to be dinner only. I would be the one that's purchasing the ingredients and creating the menu for it on that day.
Oh, because
So
you
it
have
would
to
have
do it
to
on the fly. That's
Makes
why.
sense.
you have to
Yeah.
come up with the recipes on the fly. So you basically go to, and there are restaurants in LA that do that, and many other places where the chef goes to the farmer's market in the morning, picks up what they want, comes back to the restaurant with the stuff, puts the menu together, has his help chop and dice and cut and do, and then
Those are $100 plates you're talking about,
those are
$200
$100
plates.
places. Those are
Yeah.
they're not the type of places that you want, your families in, a few times a week or a month. They're not going to be the places that we can rely on to eat on a regular basis.
Right. I mean, you're trying to feed everybody every day versus like a densely populated city that's going to have these, or these experiences that can, or that might be your sidebar. Like maybe one day when you feel like you can walk away from Fresh Levant a little bit and like leave it running a little bit, then maybe you have your little nighttime, chef's table spot that you do some of
Well,
these
I mean,
things
and
with.
this is the thing with this, we can just take a few minutes if you want to talk about this other plan that I have, which is the educational kitchen. And part of that kitchen is to be able to team up with local producers and through whatever is available during that season, be able to create a meal, have people learn how to make that meal, and dine at a family table together.
Nice.
And it's just teaching people, this is what you do with your local produce. You just come up with things. And we work through it because I can be there one-on-one teaching each and every one, oh, I can't eat this. What can I sub with that? What can I add to this? It can be done. It's easy to do. And I think it'll be more fun. It'll bring people back into the kitchen, more families hanging together, doing these things. There's nothing more fun than having an entire family in the kitchen. Everybody's talking over everybody. Food is everywhere. There's a mess everywhere, but everyone's having fun. And this is part of food. This is how you have fun with food.
Well,
that is so awesome, Anita. I really, really am so happy to hear you say that, because I think we've been talking about this a lot in the show recently, that I learn so much when I'm on the show. I don't know about everyone else, but I learn because everyone that comes on this show has kind of a theme. And I thank you. I thank you for taking your own medical problems and the problems of your family and opening a restaurant where I can go to with my family, and you solved a problem not only for yourself and your family, but for me and the community. And not only that, you're extending it to be regenerative so that it really goes to the world. And that is so amazing. You are a hero, and I thank you.
Thank you. Too much credit there. Thank you.
We're one of the other parts of the common theme is that, it's going to take ordinary people to reverse the browning of the earth. And
Absolutely.
You're contributing towards that, in bigger ways than and the ripple effect of that is going to be astronomical. And so we thank you for doing that as well.
And you're making it fun. Thank you. I love going to your restaurant. It's the best ever. It's got so much going for it, whether you want to go have some wine or you want to go and have a drink, you have quality everywhere.
And the location is just wonderful too, because I know that you're sacrificing a lot being there. I mean, cost-wise, space-wise, but it is creating normalcy for our family for sure, because you're in the middle of this village and, a place in Raleigh where people have a lot of gatherings. And so it's the only reason we can go participate in those gatherings is because we know we can come eat with you guys. I mean, because we literally won't eat anywhere else there. So it's like, that's probably the most exciting thing for our family. And,
Thank you.
I think it'll be really, really amazing if you can get this the kitchen, the teaching piece going. I think you definitely will.
I would be there because it's so exciting to me.
Me too.
I grew up with the kitchen full of people and everyone cooking and sharing. And I just love that you said that because it sounds incredible.
I want you to succeed. And I would love it if the people next door to you on the left and the right could too. But however, if you could bust through one of those walls and expand your establishment, I would be super happy about that also.
Yes.
Thank you.
We would all be happy,
Thank you. Thank you.
I think
you guys are doing a great job. I think it's amazing what you do to continue educating people, and this is the only way I think we can change it is by education. We can't fight big industry, big pharma, big anything. We can really just change the mindset of everybody and convince them there's another way and a better way, and that's the way to go.
Yeah,
change
we're not
the-
fighters. We're just
Yeah.
We're
we're
collaborators.
truth tellers, and
Yeah.
we just
Yeah.
we want people to stop, and find start to choose integrity over corporations, because the corporatocracy is ruining. Not only is it ruining the environment, but it's just ruining your health. And I think, like Janae has said in the past many times, she says first you have to consider yourself very, very important. And if you finally make yourself like really important, then you feel like it's worth making a change for yourself. And so we kind of need people to be a little bit selfish in that way, I think.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely. Yeah. I
anyway,
think
hey,
that's
listen,
true.
we're out of time, but I really think that we can, continue this conversation and share with everybody who's watching, any of your ongoing challenges, because as you're, growing and developing, you've only been doing this for a couple of years. And I think it'll be really exciting to see what's happening with you in the future. And I hope that you'll be able to, I know this is very hard for you to make time to come on here. And so thank you so much for doing it. And, please consider coming back.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to. This was fun. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, Anita.
All right, guys. I'll
See
talk to you
soon.
soon. Thanks.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, friends, that's cool, right?
It
It's a lot
goes
of
by
fun.
so fast, and
It
there's
went
so much
fast.
to learn and grow with, and
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
But
right.
we're gonna keep trying. We're gonna keep trying to get
Yeah.
it all
This is
out
a lot
there.
of fun.
Keep tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Bye.
Hey friends, we hope that this production has served you in some way today. If you would like to hear more shows like this, please help us grow our army of Minas by visiting our website and making a donation today. We are a 501c3 nonprofit corporation, and I ask that you please like and share this video, follow us on Facebook, become involved with us on Instagram and Twitter, and all of our links can be found in the show notes. Thank you.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.